Hello, and welcome to Tales from the Fandom, a channel where I'm here to share my experiences in the furry fandom. Today, I wanted to talk specifically about buyer bewares, what they are, and what kinds of issues warrant a beware. A buyer beware is a small report written by a customer who's had a negative experience with a seller, who in furry terms is often a fursuit maker or an artist. It's intended to warn future customers of the issues that person went through when doing business with the seller, so they can make an informed decision on whether or not they want to commission them as well. The most common type of fursuit maker beware I see are pop seams or holes. We see this everywhere, whether it's an amateur maker or a professional maker, in with other bewares, and on its own, and it's probably one of the most common problems with any fursuit maker. As such, it's not often a good reason to write a beware. Fursuits are made primarily by hand sewing, which is not as strong as machine sewing, and it's expected that the stitching will snap and pop with a little bit of wear and tear. Luckily, it's an easy thing to fix, and learning how to sew fur is a vital thing for maintaining the health of your fursuit. If this is your only issue with a maker, I'm going to put it in the not really worth a beware category. Now, of course, if your suit shows up and it has holes you can fit your whole legs through, or it falls apart the minute you slide it on, now that is something I'd say is more worth a beware. As with most things, it does depend on severity. Another problem we see all too commonly in the furry fandom are communication issues. Most commonly, it happens when a seller ghosts or ignores messages sent by a commissioner, or continuously promises whips or completion time without following through. In my opinion, this is something that definitely warrants a beware, especially when coupled with other issues. Lack of communication is frustrating to deal with for anyone, and lack of whips can lead to errors in the final product, which may be hard to correct later. Sometimes, things happen in life which will prevent you from working, and that's okay, but you have to tell people when you can't work. Another thing that I see that I really wish I didn't see so much in the fandom are bewares posted against artists for relationship problems. Guys, I can't stress this enough. Having a poor friendship or relationship with someone is not just cause for another individual not to do business with them. If you are dating an artist and you fight, have a bad breakup, even if they cheat on you, it's not fair to bring personal matters into business. Being a shitty boyfriend or girlfriend is not a reason for someone else not to do business with them. And oftentimes, posting a beware for such reasons is just considered airing dirty laundry. Now, I'd like to put a little disclaimer here. Abusive, illegal, or harmful relationships are very different than just relationship drama. Supporting an artist or maker who is abusive or harmful to those around them is problematic. And well, I can encourage you to go to the police before Twitter. People like this should not be supported in the fandom. Another thing we sometimes see bewares posted about are fursuit makers who cut corners. Out of everything I've talked about today, this is definitely one of the most important issues to report. Cutting corners here refers to people who do not practice proper suit making. This can be anything from using cardboard or metal in the base, or gluing seams together instead of sewing. I actually had a friend whose maker glued all the seams together in their tail rather than sewing, and this made the tail hard to touch. The reason cutting corners is something I put in the definitely please put a beware on them if you see this category is because it can be so deceptive. It's not something you can often see in just pictures, but instead only notice when you've received the final product, or more unfortunately, when someone else gets hurt. Cutting corners in suit making can be dangerous. Use of improper materials could lead to things like cuts and rust in the case of metal, and cuts and rust is a horrible combination. Overheating, which is already an issue in fursuiting, structural collapse in the case of cardboard, toxicity in paints or other chemical materials, and just so many more things that I can't cover. A more famous example of a suit maker who cuts corners in the fandom is Liquid Sunshine Designs. If you haven't heard of this maker, they had a bunch of bewares posted on them for putting little bits of metal in the muzzles of their suits. They said they did this to create support for the muzzle. If someone were to get hit really hard in the face, that metal is just going to go into their cheeks and it's going to really hurt them. Another huge and sadly common issue in the fandom is copying. Some artists will copy or trace other people's art instead of drawing their own commissions. This is obviously hugely problematic since they are literally making money off someone else's work. Art theft is definitely something worth aware. If you see somebody copying or tracing someone else's work, the other thing you should do is contact the artist who's being ripped off. They might also want to know so they can put a little post on their own site and say, hey, if you see this person, they are ripping off me, please do not commission them. Similarly, some suit makers will use bases, parts, or patterns without crediting the maker who made them. If you encounter this issue, the best thing to do is to credit both makers in your own post and let the other maker know what has happened. Most often, the other maker will contact your maker and say, hey, if you want to use my work, please credit me. And 9 times out of 10, this will solve the issue. Another form of copying is character design theft. This is when somebody tries to sell someone else's design as an adoptable or pre-made suit. If someone is trying to sell your character, the best thing to do is to make other people aware so they know not to buy it. Now, you need to consider 2 things before you put out a beware. 1, how similar designs really are. And 2, how complex is your design? If your character is a white wolf with blue hair, well, people can definitely come up with that on their own without ever having seen your character. And further, if the only similarity is, say, the color palette, well, again, no one can own a color palette, and it's not something that's worth a beware. 1 or 2 similarities between characters is not enough to say someone has copied you. Finally, there's actual literal scams. This refers to when somebody has taken your money or end of a trade without providing anything back. It's unfortunately all too common for people to take on commissions without pulling through, and the best way to stop this from happening again is to make others aware of the issue. Now, what should you actually do if you see a beware put on someone else? There's only one thing to do, and that's choose whether or not to do business with that person. Bewares are not calls or cause to harass people, and it's up to each individual person to decide whether or not they want to do business with that artist. It is not up to you to tell people or to decide for them whether or not they should continue business. All you can do is provide information for them and be honest and let them decide for themselves. Well, that's all for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Next time, I'm going to be covering the other end of the spectrum, which are seller bewares. Thanks so much for clicking on this video, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye! Flip the page. Oh, rip the page.